Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anna, and I am the content strategist at Fiscal Note, which is, as you know, the parent brand of Voter Voice. And I am really excited to welcome you all to today's webinar, Real World Benefits of Integrated Data for Advocacy Organizations. Thank you so much for joining us. Um, I wanted to talk a little bit today about who is joining me today on the webinar. As you know, I'm representing Voter Voice. For those of you who aren't familiar with Voter Voice, we are a data science-backed, AI-powered advocacy platform. What that basically means is we help you run really effective campaigns, connect with the right lawmakers, grow your advocacy base throughout the entire year. You have the benefit of leveraging data from our entire database. So we will use AI generated copy to help you improve your open rates. You can compare the success of your campaign to benchmarks of other users in the platform. Last year, across the board, our users saw a 98% delivery rate, 39% open rate, and a 7% action rate. Also with me today is AMS Geek, an integration partner that helps connect Voter Voice to your systems, unify your data, and support smarter workflows. Specifically from AMS Geek, I have Justin and Ben. Give us a wave, guys. Justin is the Director of Growth and Partnerships, and Ben is the founder and CEO, and both are joining us from AMS Geek. I'm going to let them do plenty of talking in just a minute, but I wanted to do some quick housekeeping and also a quick poll in just a minute. Just some housekeeping items. Yes, you will be getting an email of this entire webinar after it is complete. Feel free, if any questions pop up, to ask them in the chat. We will save some time at the end of today's talk to answer those directly. And at the very end of today's survey, there is at the very end of today's webinar, there is a one question survey that we would love for you to fill out just to tell us if you enjoyed the content and it's helpful. So let's get started with a poll. The first question I'd like to ask is, let me see if I can't get this thing launched. Advocacy data. What is the biggest challenge with your advocacy data today? I'd love to hear from the room of what your biggest challenge is today. Is it that your systems aren't syncing automatically, that you are relying on manual exports, the data is outdated, struggling to take action on the data we have, or maybe we're in good shape? We'll give you guys a couple of seconds to fill that out, and I will share the results. I'm gonna guys give you a 10-second countdown.
Everyone's in great shape. We can pack it up early, I guess, right? I'm just kidding.
All right, let me end the poll and see if I can't share the results with everyone. Okay, it looks like a majority of folks, our systems do not sync automatically. That's really great to hear. Not great for you, but great in that we've got some experts that can help you with that. So I am going to turn it over to Ben and Justin.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ben Muscolino. I've been in the association tech space for about 20 years, dating back to working for GR Software many, many years ago and working at AMS, and since then running community software companies, iPass, AMS Consulting. So, and I surround myself with a lot of people that have worked at associations and nonprofits and other folks that have been in the industry a long time. So I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Hey everyone, I'm Justin Darrigan. I'm the Director of Growth and Partnerships here at AMS Geek. I too come from a long background in association technology, almost 20 years under my belt as well. So thrilled to be working with Voter Voice and to be participating in this webinar, and excited and thankful that all of you have taken some time out of your day to join us for this discussion.
So you both have a lot of experience working with advocacy. Can you talk to me a little bit about some of the ways you partner with advocacy groups, some of the work that you've done in the past?
Yeah, the way that we partner up, most of the time we're getting brought in as an opportunity to create efficiencies, to create more bandwidth for organizations. And what we find is people want they know what they want to accomplish in the end, but how to get there with systems processes is where we come in and we help with data continuity planning, efficiencies, a lot of integration work, sometimes not integrations, building. Sometimes it's really consulting. It's really helping document and identify the need that they have. People know that they have a need, but articulating it in a way that the systems can interpret it and then help them. So we are experts in understanding how to get organizations to a place where they can execute on their missions, utilize the best data, and working with partners like Voter Voice, and help tie that together so that their business case can be really help. We can help accelerate, success for their business case by using their systems.
Great. Um, Follow up to that, when it comes to people finally deciding to contact you to get started on integrating their data, what is the trigger of that decision?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's a lot of triggers, but I think the main triggers that lead people to a decision to talk with someone like us is, when they sit and they talk about the frequency of their need or the fact that they might have limited bandwidth. I think I can speak for everybody here that most associations are trying to do more with less, right? So you have people that specialize in what to say and what to do and what they want their members to do, but how do we make it so that the operational task of doing that is not only accurate, but doesn't require people that are working on policy and messaging and rallying the troops to have to shuffle around spreadsheets. So I think in a lot of ways, one of the first questions that we always have is frequency. How often are you active around these needs that you have? And if it's once a year or twice a year, it may not be something that you want to hire a consultant or build an integration for because that manual process may work for you. If it's more often than that, then people are really focused on making sure their data is up to date very frequently. And if they have to touch it very frequently and it's manual, now all of a sudden you're talking about eating into staff time with things that are just not a good use of time for staff. And I think just frustration around data relevancy and wanting to make data-driven decisions without having the most up-to-date data in their systems that they rely on to reach the people that they're trying to reach to support these campaigns, or in the other case, and we'll talk about this later, but making sure you have the right data in both places because there's different logic around why people want fresh data, for example, into Voter Voice, or why they may want some of that Voter Voice data back into their AMS or their CRM. So as those needs start to become frustrations, we help turn those into solutions.
Yeah, also sometimes those frustrations, just from personal experience, if your business is at a point where it's ready to scale or hit a new milestone, the data can really hold you back from being strategic, making strategic decisions, scaling your operations. You need fluid data from one system to another in order to keep growing and keep growing the mission. Tell me about some of the quick wins, because if I were to do this, it sounds simple, and if it is simple, it should have some immediate payoffs. What would
Yeah.
those be, and when can I expect to see that?
Yeah, I think that as a general rule, you want to put together all of your goals, not just for an integration, for example, but what are you trying to accomplish in using your advocacy platform and using the data that's there? What are you trying to get from your members? And then you need to break that down into simple pieces. Where are the friction points, right? And I'll tell you that I think managing to the rule and not to the exception is something that once you get everything on the board, then it's okay, what are the core pieces of it and try to simplify it as much as you can. I think the quick wins are in finding out that friction point and what is the minimum viable product or solution to eliminate that friction point instead of trying to build all of your conversational business logic that your team comes up with and try to like turn that into a technology solution. More times than not, the technology is going to be able to help you. The integration, for example, we use this phrase a lot. What we do is very complicated, and how we do it does not need to be all the time, right? And so I think that really trying to unpack and boil it down to um, the rule that is the most common use case for why you would need efficiency or something like what we do, and document your exceptions and then decide how important those are. Compartmentalize and execute, in my opinion.
So it sounds like the quick wins are really dependent on why you're even starting the integration. And
That's
your
right.
advice is to map out all of the different systems or data sets and where those friction points are of I have to manually export from platform A to platform B. This is a huge friction point. And asking yourself, well, why do I do that? And like, what is the value of seeing that data from A to
Right.
B? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, and there's simple places to start too. Most organizations don't have a true data dictionary. This is a really fun, easy way to start. You just brought up two things. You have system A and you have system B. Start out with just mapping that data, right? Say these are the fields that we're tracking, or these are the fields that we know we want in voter voice. These are the fields that we're tracking or have in our AMS or CRM or ERP, and put those sort of side by side in a workbook and say, okay, let's forget about the workflow for a second. Let's inventory our data, and all of a sudden, you start to realize the naming conventions are a little different. Okay, let's match those up, right? Really simple things that once you get it down on paper, you, your staff, everyone involved starts to get a little upskilled in data knowledge for your organization and how things are being managed in different systems. And it also helps you trim too. You're like, yeah, I know we're tracking this over here, but we don't use it over here. So let's remove that from, the list of things that we say we want to map. A simple inventory and data dictionary is like it's a scary term for some people because like dictionary is really thick, right? It doesn't need to be like a simple data dictionary. You can do it system by system. And before you know it, it can turn into an organizational data dictionary for you that people will start thanking you for because you'll have an example, a simple one, they can carry into another system, their LMS, their accounting system, and so on. So I think those are really quick wins. It gets people talking about facts and not about, ideas. And then you can use those facts to form your ideas.
I love that. And then when you're working from facts, then the workflow or the work when it actually begins is a lot smoother. And I
Right.
love that the first step is to audit your own data sets before somebody else comes in, because that is a great first step in making sure that eventually when you bring in an expert like AMS Geek, they are delivering what you want versus them having to guess. So I think that's really great. Great, great, great advice.
Right.
I want to move on to another question about in this process. Where do people get stuck?
Yeah, I think people get stuck in a couple of areas. I think the pre-work that we just talked about, I'll refer to that as pre-work, things that you
Yeah,
can do that help you form your requirements and then bring them to somebody and say, this is what we know and this is what we think we're trying to accomplish. I think that that is easy to overcome as a consultant. We can sit in a meeting very easily and say, all right, let's talk about your data sets. We'll help you with the mapping, all those kinds of things. If you come to the table with that, even better. Where people get stuck, I think, is trying to predict the future, right? And what I mean by that is, uh, I think in a lot of cases, like I'll use the examples that we see every day. People are very clear on we need to get this data from here over to this system. And I'll say, generally speaking, there's a bunch of different use cases in how we've built integrations with voter voice customers. But a very common, simple one is we need to get our membership data with this criteria over to voter voice because we're going to use voter voice to run, all of these campaigns over here. And I think that people want to think forward to the right back, and kind of that two-way sync. Okay, once that people have taken action and done things, do we write that data back to the system? And generally speaking, people would say, yeah, we want to write that back. And what they don't really think about is write it back where? Is there a home for that data in your system right now? You should know what it is. And more importantly, why do you want it back there? Right? There is a very evolving data continuity, strategy conversation happening at most organizations right now where not everything needs to be written back to the AMS. People are using data warehouses, unstructured data with AI is so much easier to manage. We do a lot of consulting around those types of things as well. And so it's not that we don't want, it's not that we want to talk people out of spending money for a bigger scope for an integration, but we really want them to validate it to us and sell us on where you want it to go, why you want it there, and what are you going to do with it next? Because that actionable data sitting in your AMS, in a lot of cases for me, I think that the idea of segmentation or personalization, right? In the same way that you might think about event system integrations. If I'm messaging out to people, I want to know, at minimum, am I messaging people that have already registered or that have not registered, right? Like simple we're not even talking about personalization at that point. We're talking about segmentation. Getting that data back can be very useful. So think about why you want the data back there before you get wrapped around the axle and stuck on, well, we want the data back but we don't know where. Maybe we have to create a custom field. Does it need to be queried? How does it need to be actionable? And so I think that's where people get stuck in a lot of cases. And technology is so easy to iterate on that I think tackling pieces of the problem at a time sometimes is the fastest way to do it. And it ends up conserving people's time and budget, and it keeps projects from having scope expansion and things like that, especially if you think you want to do it now, but you're not really sure of some of those details. Um,
Can you just clarify? This is the worst time to be
please,
asking. For
no,
someone
please.
that is a little bit more of a layperson like me, write back. What part of the process is that? What is write back?
Yeah, writing back sorry, you're absolutely right. I'm using like, our nomenclature over here. But the idea of if I get the data from my AMS,
Yep,
my member data, and I put it over in Voter Voice. And then I
yep.
run all these campaigns in Voter Voice, and I have people writing letters to my congressman and doing all these great things. Do I want to write back those activities back into the AMS on those records
Ah,
so that I know who supported what, how often they're supporting things that I ask them to support, in what area did they do those things? And so that data being written back to the individual records in your AMS or your CRM is what we refer to as write back. There's a lot of activity that's going on in voter voice, and are there outcomes from voter voice activity that we want to bring back in to put on our member record or our customer record?
so it sounds like there are lots of layers to integration. There's just connecting
Yeah.
two systems and a flow of data from one point to another, but then the option to have data flow back or to
Yeah.
write back, as you were saying. Um,
Yes.
how do you advise people or work with people to decide if writing back? I know you had said maybe you could repeat some of those questions that you asked to help people decide if that's the path they want to go down.
Yeah, I think it really boils down to having a plan for that data. Hoarding it on your system for reporting is I guess a good enough reason to have it sometimes, right? Maybe your executive director or people or members for that matter, maybe you want to put a dashboard together that says this is how many people, this is what percentage of our members are doing, XYZ, whatever actions. But I think that and that's more informational. You could arguably get that data right from voter voice and create a graph out of that. We live in the age of AI, like putting these things together is not hard anymore. So, but getting the data back with the intent to do something with it, are we going to use that data to segment people? Are we a very common thing that we do a lot of consulting on as well is like engagement scoring, right? The idea that if someone, I'll give you a really simple example, someone donates, one time and they do it twice, someone donates a single time, they do it 2 years in a row, and they also attended the annual conference 2 out of the last 3 years. They sat on a committee and they've taken 3 actions in voter voice. So you put that data together in one place, and the numbers tell you, well, this person is 87% more likely to become a sustaining donor than someone that did, one activity in voter voice over the last 2 years, right? So what you're doing, that is a great reason to do that. But the idea of wanting to do it versus your AMS or whatever platform you're writing the data back to, can it support engagement scoring? If it can't, then maybe it's not a good reason to bring it back.
That makes total
Um,
sense. What
yeah.
about bringing it back if you want to leverage other data points into like a CRM or something? So you want your voter voice data, like you said, the engagement, and then maybe you're building a custom dashboard that gives you like engagement score or what have you. What about if I want to sync with other data? Is that a good reason for a write back?
It absolutely is. Yeah. In fact, we do that really commonly. We have groups that have third party certification issuing or credentialing tools, and so they'll want to bring back different activities, um, not necessarily directly to that platform, but they'll bring it into, their AMS, for example, and then together with that data and other pieces of data, they will sort of write that as a data payload over to that other system. So it becomes an intermediary that creates the recipe for the thing that you want to bake in the credentialing oven or the learning oven or whatever that is. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a good question, actually.
I'm just curious about what would change on my day to day if I had these integrations in place, regardless of if it's just one or A to B, back to A, connects with C, what are some of the immediate improvements? What are some of the immediate benefits of going through that process?
Yeah, the efficacy of everything that you do is reflected based on the data quality. So if it's up to date all the time, for example, one of the things that we'll do is nightly syncs, hourly syncs, or even is every 10 minutes we can do real time. That's usually not needed in circumstances like this advocacy platform. But this idea that I'm working on the business side of this is the campaign, this is the target audience, these are the outcomes that we want. You shouldn't have to pause and say, is the data that I'm using the most relevant? You should assume or know that it is,
Yeah. Oh, let me
right?
see. Let me go check with the data guy to pull that list real
Yeah.
quick.
And all of a sudden you're on Teams and you're like, hey,
Uh,
Janet, like, when was the last time you uploaded the last workbook for this? Oh, I was going to do it on Friday. I was out on Monday, Tuesday. Well, I
yeah.
need this by 2 p.m. Oh, well, hold on. Call Rick and see if Rick can do it because I can't get to it until after 2 p.m. And now you have three people involved in pulling a spreadsheet of data that's already been managed properly in your AMS. It just isn't up to date in voter voice. And really, that person should just be focused with confidence to go use voter voice and know that in the last hour, any change that was made from last week to right now has been up to date. And I can just move forward with my campaigns, knowing that I don't have to waste time of other people's staff. I don't have to waste my own time checking in on it. I don't have to do something. It's not that pulling data out of a system is below anybody. Look, everybody needs to take out the trash once in a while, right? But if you know that it's automatically being done, you get to focus on, um, critical
Anything
thinking.
else?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, just critical thinking tasks. Like our staff has never become more valuable for their brains instead of their fingers. Now that we have so much automation, you have an AI enabled platform, and we create automation between all these platforms. And the idea is to get people focused on, the business and not necessarily on the tasks all the time because the tasks can be automated now.
I'm really dying to see a real world example here.
Very
I think,
good.
Yeah, sounds great. I'd love to share a little bit about one of our mutual clients here. So, we're looking right now at Shared Hope International, and this is an amazing organization that's been on the front lines with a mission of combating human trafficking for over 20 years. So, to do this, they've pioneered this three-pronged approach that they take to fulfill their mission. The first prong is prevention, right? Via training, raising awareness, solution collaboration with other organizations. The second prong, restoration, is something that they facilitate via programs for survivors, partner networks, safe homes, medical care, vocational training, and more. And then the third prong, bringing justice, is something that's so crucial and largely is achieved and facilitated and gotten closer to through their advocacy campaigns, which are aimed at informing and shaping legislation and public policy. So, this third prong, bringing justice, is so crucial, and that's what I wanted to quickly highlight today. So, Shared Hope has very effectively utilized voter voice for their advocacy campaigns over the years. And they started working with AMS Geek last year because they also utilize Salesforce as their CRM. And this is where they keep track of all the individuals and the organizations that support and engage with them. So we help them to integrate their advocacy data into Salesforce so that they could better track and analyze the advocacy actions that their supporters were engaging in. All right, so this is an integration that's primarily focused on that right back topic that we were discussing a moment ago. They want to bring back all those actions from voter voice into Salesforce so they have a much richer set of data. And with this integration, their voter voice data is now unified inside of Salesforce, where they can use it for reporting, segmentation, analysis, and more importantly, this unified data now informs their communications campaigns and messaging. They can identify their most ardent supporters, and they become even more strategic with their advocacy efforts. And of course, pulling in the campaign responses from voter voice to Salesforce is just one flavor of the voter voice integration. And we mentioned there's a couple of different things you can do. We've built these integrations to also push context created in voter voice to an AMS or a CRM, or to pull contacts from the AMS or the CRM over to voter voice. And of course, writing back those actual advocacy actions to become part of that rich set of data inside of the AMS or CRM as well.
I imagine it's really important, especially for advocacy, because
Yeah,
one of your goals is you're running campaigns, that's great, but there's a lot of things that have to happen outside of campaigns. Primarily, you have to build your advocacy network. You have to network or do grass-tops surveys to say, okay, who in your network do you know? And as you're meeting all of these people from your network, having that data sync back and forth in real time is going to be really important when, let's say, a bill shows up and you need to engage your segmented audience really quickly. You don't have to wait and say, let's wait before we launch this campaign to get this other batch of data loaded in. I think that's really interesting.
you nailed it, right? That kind of optionality with the different types of integrations is just a key to ensuring that you have the right data in the right places to be as useful as possible, to achieve your advocacy goals and to just get things done more quickly and avoid those situations where there's five people on teams trying to figure out what's the best data set, who has it, how do we get it where we need it to be, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I can understand why it's so important to start with what Ben was saying of auditing your data and just asking why. Why do we want to connect this back to this or this back to this? I think that also is almost like a playground of new ideas that you can surface once the data integration is there. Who knows what you can do when your data is synced? Like, let's say your organization has lobbyists that have relationships with certain people. And then as soon as a bill passes, some kind of trigger can be passed forth that would notify them in like a Salesforce or something like, hey, make contact with someone. That used to have to be something manual you would have to do, pull a list, send it out to all these folks. Hey, now you can just automate that action based on this flow of updated data.
Exactly right.
That, yeah, it's absolutely right. And there are so many elements to it, but even think about the mess of redistricting sometimes with your data as well. Like voter voice
Oh, yeah.
becomes such a huge asset to
Yes.
as they manage the data for you. in a way, if you integrate properly, you never have to manage that data. They're going to continue to do it for you, and then everything gets updated, automatically back into your other systems. I'll tell you some of the most fun moments for us though are when we talk a customer into, not talk them into, right? We don't want to talk you into anything. We want to help you do what you want to do, but we kind of put some caution there to say, hey, let's start here and get this piece done. You said you need one, two, three, maybe four, and kind of five. Well, let's do one, two, and three. And then they call us back a few months later and they say, okay, this is working great for us. And we just had a conversation around how we might use this other field or this other piece of data. And can we add that? And this is why we started Data Sangria, is because instead of saying, yeah, yes, we can do that for you, let me send you a change order, which, if we had like an open chat for everybody, I'm sure everybody's heard the word change order in this space. We get on and we show you how you can do it yourself in an iPass. And that is, part of our monitored approach as well, is to say, let's get this infrastructure in place for you. And then you can come in and expand or contract the scope of it as your needs and the intentionality around how you want to share data starts to expand. We give you the control to be able to go in and do that yourself. So we actually give a user interface where the customers can manage mapping the data, and make it really simple so that you're not beholden to the software vendors that are doing their job. Voter Voice is making sure your data and your platform is fantastic. Your AMS is doing a great job making sure they're running membership renewals and allowing people to manage their profiles. And all we're doing is making sure that all of the great data management that's happening on either side comes together. And then you get to decide what that expands or contracts into over time around the intentionality that you have around what data you need to accomplish your goals. It's that simple.
Can't imagine having to like clean up data, like a member list in two platforms.
Yeah.
That sounds like a nightmare. So, well, we have, I don't know if y'all,
So do we have Q&A going
we
on?
have one question here. Is Data Sangria the integration tool available? How much on top of Voter Voice subscription and how is the pricing model?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Without quoting pricing right now, I'll tell you that the way that we charge for it is per integration. And the reason we do that is because we want to lower the barrier of entry for all size associations to run the most integrated, set of systems they can. For example, in our partnership with Voter Voice, we have customers that come to them that have never heard of us, and maybe maybe they don't use a traditional AMS, so they didn't hear about us from their AMS partner, and they say, well, we really want to share this data between this donor management tool and Voter Voice, and these are kind of the two main platforms that we use to run our business in addition to our website. And they'll say, meet our friends over here, and we'll come in, and instead of saying, yep, we license the platform and you can do whatever you want with it, go ahead, we compartmentalize it into a single integration because you may not need it for other things. So the pricing model is that there's typically a very small setup fee, and then there's an ongoing annual fee. And we like to think that it is very proportionally appropriate to, probably what you're spending for some of your other systems. We want it to be a complement. We don't want it to be a hindrance, because it's going to save you time, allow you to do your job better. And in a way, we think of it as a small add-on. And the reason there's an annual fee is there's a platform to use Data Sangria, so it's licensed in the platform. But keep in mind too that there's APIs on both sides. So in the case of Shared Hope, for example, they're using Voter Voice and they're using Salesforce. And what we do is make sure that if there are any updates to the APIs on either side, or if there's any issue with it, we'll usually know it before you because we have a lot of customers using it, and we get kind of pre-release documentation and things like that from a lot of groups. But if there's ever any issue with it, we fix it. It applies to all customers. It's fixed for everyone. So it includes support, and then we get out of the way, and you don't get like a time and materials like consulting bill for fixing a custom integration. It's all productized and really predictable, forecastable. And that's the way we do it. So I would recommend reach out to us, or reach out to Voter Voice and let us know what the systems are that you're running and your approximate, size, give or take. And then it's really easy to set those up. The way that we've really approached it with the Voter Voice team is, if you're using the state packages, we're going to try and keep that cost a little bit lower. And if you're using national, it's a little bit more normalized. But our cost of customer acquisition is not a lot because of the really close partnership that we have with Voter Voice. So if you reach out to them or reach out to us, our job is to make sure you're integrated so you can make better use of both of those systems and make sure that the pricing is not disruptive for you to get your systems connected.
And that is a great segue to our concluding slide today. I want to thank everyone for your time. If you are interested in learning about either of the products that we talked about today, Voter Voice or AMS Geek, you can visit info.votervoice.net or amsgeek.com. And if you have any other additional questions, feel free to contact any of us and we'll be happy to answer those for you. But gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. I thought this was really, really helpful. I definitely learned a lot. And I want to thank everyone that attended and sharing your afternoon with us.
Thank you very much for having us.
All right, bye everyone.
Thanks so
Bye,
much,
everyone.
guys.